Well, first of all, I love that we're going to talk about gap years. I really like gap years. The Dean of Freshman role was about inculcating a sense of belonging in our newest undergraduates so that they could persist through challenges, build a sense of community, and ultimately thrive. It was about attending to the rituals and rites of passage that really help somebody feel like they're a part of something. It was about making sure they knew they mattered to us, that they weren't just, numbers. They were humans. Look, gap years, I think there's too much of childhood right now that is, you have to do this in order to get that. You have to do this in order to get that. And then you get that. And like childhood is a ladder, it seems, that leads to like a door, which is a college. And that's so narrow. Yes, there's college, and college is good for a lot of reasons, but college is a long time and it's expensive. And you want to be sure, if you are going to college, that you're really equipped to make good use of this expensive but terrific resource. So if you've been on this like trajectory, like everything leads to the next thing and then college, you may not have had a chance to look around much and really ask, is college right for me? Should I go to a 4-year? Should I maybe go to a 2-year community college, junior college? Should I go straight to the workforce? Should I go into the military? There are loads of things you can do after high school, and they all offer a lot of merits. Gap year is a way to say, you know what? I'm not going to treat life like a ladder where every next rung, like every year, I know automatically what I'm supposed to be doing. Like K through 12, that's that ladder. College doesn't have to be the 13th rung. It's college will always be there, will be available. So it's sort of like get off the ladder, climb down from the ladder for a second, and look what else there is besides this ladder. And then if you do decide, yeah, I am going to college, then because you've taken this year away, hopefully doing something useful, studying something, traveling to a new community where you can learn, about someone else's culture or learn a language, work a job in a place that's unfamiliar. Don't just sit at home on the couch. Like that's not a useful gap year. A useful gap year gives you the chance to explore, put yourself somewhere different, ideally, because that's when we really have the chance to grow and learn who we are and who we aren't. And, so you come away from that experience, you're more grown up, you're more familiar with yourself, you're more self-reliant, you've learned how to solve a whole lot of problems, you're going to be clearer on what your interests are. All of that will lead to the greater likelihood that you will not just make it through college, but like really do well in ways that'll serve you in the future. There's research that shows this. And I should have said, I was on the board of a gap year organization called Global Citizen Year, which has rebranded itself and is different org now. But it was, I served on that board because I firmly believed that gap year has advantages for students in terms of their personal development and readiness for college.
I love that. And I think it's so fascinating what you said about, like, yes, a gap year is a time for you to finally stop and look up and see, why am I on this path that I've been on my entire life? Why have I never questioned that path before, And personally for me, I applied to college, got into one school. It was very far away, and it was UC Berkeley, which was a great school for entrepreneurship. But it would mean like going to school for entrepreneurship, but at the cost of stopping the momentum that I had in my entrepreneurial journey that I was at the time. And in my head, I decided like, well, it doesn't really make sense to go to college and lose the momentum. Like momentum is hard to build. And so if I have it, let me just run with it. So I kept at it because I thought at the end of the day, college will always be there, right? And it's not necessarily a time-sensitive resource. But now it's been 3 years. I feel like my career is still going up. I've learned so much. Things have only really gotten better for me since then. I don't feel like I've stalled. But I think that I still do feel that pressure sometimes of, do I go back to school? And, at the time, I didn't really know that I was making a decision to not go to college. I was really just pursuing what was right. But I feel like there's so many students that probably are stopping after senior year of high school and saying like, okay, what am I actually doing? Do I take a gap year? Do I not? So I'm curious, like, how can you make a decision when there's just so much unknown? How do you decide? Am I gonna really feel better and more passionate about what I want to pursue after a gap year? Am I not? Is this a waste of time? Should I just like go straight into it? So how far ahead can you plan? And what are the decision frameworks that you think students should consider when taking a gap year?
Well, the first thing that I want to say is, like, I think I've already mentioned, there's no right path. So I want to, like, it's not as if, oh, that would have been the right path. We have no idea what the path we didn't take would have been like. And often, if we're unhappy in this path, we say, oh, I should have done that. That would have been better. We have no idea if that would have been better. They might have been, equally good, but for very different reasons. There are myriad things we can do in life. And I think we can get caught up in, I have to optimize it all, figure it all out, as if there is somehow the right path and the second right path and the third right path. And that's just the wrong way to think about all of the options available to us in life. So what I would prefer is, instead of, is this with the sort of one is right, one is wrong, I would say, let me ask myself, do I feel excited to go to college this fall? Do I feel ready to be in a greater degree of rigor, meeting brand new people, living away from home, maybe, usually, am I eager for that, right? Eagerness, right? Not just, yeah, I'm going to go to college, don't do it if you're like, well, it's college, I have to. Like, no, I want you to be pulled for, excuse me, pulled forward with eagerness, with excitement, with curiosity, whichever path is making you go, ooh, that sounds awesome. Like, yeah, maybe it's a little scary, but also it could be kind of neat. Like, listen to your body. What kind of energy is coming up in you when you consider the options? These are clues about which one might be the more rewarding choice for you at this time of your life.
I think a part of listening to your body is also trying to find your life purpose and how that looks like for you in your career and really just in practicality. And I think gap years really do help with that. I've also noticed a few students that have taken gap years. It can sometimes be easy to get sidetracked or fall into this idea of maybe I don't want to go back to college. Maybe it's actually not the right decision for me. And so I'm curious, how can a student structure their gap year so that they can fully maximize its benefits?
Well, Kayla, I want to push back on that, because you said some people find themselves sidetracked. And again, that implies you're supposed to be on a track. You're not, your sidetrack means up, you're not here, you're over here. I don't buy into that. I think for Gael, for example, doing this entrepreneurship stuff, not everyone's going to end up going to college. And if you started some entrepreneurial thing after high school and it's working for you and you're getting some wins and also a lot of lessons learned, so you're growing and you're getting better and faster and more efficient and agile and visionary, like, I don't know what your metrics are in your entrepreneurial world, but all of this is learning. It's not traditional college learning. It's not book learning. It's not sitting and listening to someone else. It's learning by doing, right? Having all of these experiences that are training you how to think, training you how to problem solve, training you to be resilient when things don't go your way. Like, this is life teaching you things that are so important. And it may turn out that your entrepreneurial life is, you may look back and you're like, I'm 30. I never went to college. Well, fine. Looks like you're doing great. Like, you don't have to go, right? College is meant to give you tools to prepare you to be successful in life in some way. You're already successful. Like, maybe you don't need it. Or maybe you do decide to go back because there's something specific you want to learn and it can only be learned at a university, okay? So I don't believe in the concern about sidetracked. I'm never going back. I think parents are concerned about that. Oh, I could never let them do a gap year. They might get sidetracked. They might never go. Well, that's a different thing, okay? A parent's concerned that I need you to go to college because I've decided that college is what'll make me proud or what I think will lead you toward the right career. As a young person, I think you need to be able to be in conversation with your parents and say, hey, parents, okay, here's why I'm excited about this gap year. Here's what I intend to learn. I will check in with you. This is a part of my education, if you will. It's just more of an experiential part of my education. I do plan to go to college, unless somehow my whole life turns upside down because my gap year turns out to lead me in a new direction. Yeah, I'm planning to go to college. So I think having that conversation, frankly, with parents can help.
And what have you found with parents? Like, is there a way to help them trust their kid that, like, yes, this gap year is a good idea, actually? Is it by joining a program, but also keeping in mind that, I mean, like, programs can be so inaccessible, and where you're dealing with being a first generation college student, how do you explain to your immigrant mother that, like, no, 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 I am going to college, just not now? I'm actually going to go travel the world on a ship with other students who are also doing that. It's like, what? Why? No, I'm not letting you do that. Like, you're going to school. So what is it about gap year programs that can make it inaccessible? Who are the types of students taking it? Because the connotation right now is like, are gap years really just a bunch of rich kids to travel the world?
Well, there certainly always has been that piece that rich families send their sons and daughters, their children off to travel somewhere, to prepare them for this and that. And that's a very old concept, and presumably that still happens in rich families. But let's ignore them for a second. What I would say to my immigrant mother is, first of all, this is how I would always structure this conversation. Open with gratitude, love, praise, whatever you can offer. Grateful you've sacrificed so much. You've provided for me. I love you. I know you love me. I know you want the best. Pause. I have some thoughts about what I want to do this year, and I know it might not be what you have in mind for me, but I'd like the opportunity to tell you, is that okay? Like, approaching a conversation in an emotionally mature way helps demonstrate to your parent that you have the maturity to make this decision. Here's what I've looked into. Here's what is offered. Here's what it costs. Here's how I'm going to handle it, and here's why it's good. And then I would say the experts say that these years, whether I go on a ship or I go travel to another country this way, or I go, do a gap year over here, that this actually prepares me to be more successful in college because it's teaching me real world skills that are going to help me succeed, in the college level. So I would say that it's absolutely true. And, but I would you hear me start with compassion and gratitude, because that's what the parent needs, that reassurance that they're not ignoring everything that I've always expected or we've always talked about. This is actually all aligned.
That is so interesting because I made a TikTok a couple months ago where I said I took like 3 gap years, and these are some things you should consider before reapplying again, because I was in the process of reapplying to school and realizing I need to go hunt down teachers, I need to get a fee waiver, I need to go pay for my transcript and figure out how to explain that I took like 3 years off, but I'm more prepared than ever. The video got over like 1.5 million views, and so many people in the comments were just roasting me, saying like, you're taking more than 1 gap year, like that's not a gap year anymore, you just didn't go to school, like why are you doing this, you just deferred college, like this is dumb, you're just unemployed. So yeah, like honestly, what is the difference between taking a gap year and deferring college? Is there even one?
Well, I think a gap year sounds like, I think there's a path I should be on. I'm going to go do this on the side for a little bit, and then I'm going to come back. But what you've just described is I did that, and then I discovered this is a path I really like, and maybe this becomes the path. Both are valid. Okay. What I am pushing, and congratulations on your video. That's very exciting. And I love that you're bringing this option, to more people's consciousness. I'm pushing back against the only right track is college. And if I'm not on that path, something's wrong with me. Okay. If you're feeling called to go to college, go to college. If you're excited about that school that's admitted you and you're going to study this over here and you like, feel good when you're there, you like the vibe, you like the kids, like go. But if there's a part of you that's longing, yearning, curious about something that's like over here, like be willing to look at that and say, hey, this, they didn't talk about this in high school, but dang, this sounds awesome. Like you have to listen to that impulse in your body. Okay. The other thing I want to say is the admissions people love essays written about gap years. Whether it's a traditional gap year, like I'm going to get on a boat with strangers for 9 months, or it's non-traditional. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. If you can write about what you learned, what you discovered about your own fears, your own strengths, your own weaknesses, like gap years make for great college essays. Okay? It's like the utilitarian, like gap years lead to better admissions outcomes. Okay? So you can tell your immigrant parent that, like, I am more likely to get into a college because I did a gap year.
So the thing about a gap year is it can be so difficult to know you're actually making progress because you're not getting grades, you're not doing this. It's also personal. So I'm curious, like, how would you define and how would you help young people know that they actually are improving or learning in some way throughout the gap year?
So here's what I'm going to tell you. Global Citizen Year, where I was on the board, this is what they said. So I'm borrowing from them. This is not original Julie. This is from Abby Fallick, who founded Global Citizen Year. She said, we have our comfort zone, which is like our home. If our home is a safe space, our couch with Netflix and Hulu, like our comfort zone. I'm good. I'm like here. I'm safe. We have our panic zone, which is like, oh shoot, I'm scared. I'm in trouble. I'm going to die. Like, this is terrible. And in between our panic zone and our comfort zone is our stretch zone. Okay. You learn in the stretch zone. You do not learn in the comfort zone. Okay. It's by definition not a place of learning. It's a place of comfort. It's like a couch. Okay. You learn in the stretch zone. You don't want to be so stretched that you're panicking. All right. You go into this circumstance knowing I'm not going to be at home. That's going to teach me some things. I'm going to have to rely on my ability to talk to strangers. That's important in life. I'm going to have to learn a new town or a new city. Maybe I'm going to live with a family in a different culture. That's going to be like, maybe I'm going to work in a new community. Like maybe, it's sort of by definition, learning and growing takes this stretch out beyond what you already know. And yet it's terrifying and exhilarating. It's like both. It's like I'm scared. I'm not terrified, literally. It's like, wow, this is new. Am I going to be okay? And then you do it. And you're like, look, I'm okay. You almost discover the fact of your own existence with greater clarity when you're somewhere else.
I have a year left and I'm thinking like, damn, maybe I should have taken a gap year, but I just wasn't aware that that was an option for me. And so it really is just so inspiring hearing how it can really help you find your purpose. And I'm surprised too that this conversation is turning out to be not so much an analytical thing, but much more of an emotional and mental aspect. You're looking for your purpose and what excites you. And I think before this conversation, I was definitely thinking about gap years more like, okay, what programs can you do? What are the numbers? What's the data? And so it's really nice and comforting knowing that it's more so a process of just finding who you are.
And I just think gap years are an incredibly exciting opportunity to learn in a non-traditional setting a whole lot about yourself by stretching because you are somewhere other than what's familiar. So it really helps grow a person up more. And if they do end up going back to college, which most do, it helps them be more intentional about what they choose to do in college, and it helps them be more successful. So I just see it as a win-win.
Wow, I really loved that conversation. I feel like I wished my 18-year-old self had that conversation with Julie beforehand because I think I definitely would have reconsidered going right to college right after high school, or maybe just even taking a gap year during my college years. But overall, I feel like what really stuck with me is just knowing that gap years is much more of an emotional journey rather than trying to get an internship, which it can be. But I think it's more so just knowing that you're trying to find who you are and you're just taking a little break and then going back into college.
You don't think the pressure of like not being in the same class as all your friends would have got to you though? Like you think you actually would have seriously considered taking a gap year?
I think that pressure definitely would have gotten to me a little bit, but there was a time, I think it was like maybe freshman year or sophomore year of actual college, where I was like, I'm dropping out. And, maybe I didn't need to be so extreme. Maybe I just needed to take 6 months off, a year off. But I did not. But definitely I would have gotten a little bit of FOMO, not gonna lie.
Well, and it's fine. I think that it was interesting knowing how emotional it is and just that there is no right or wrong. I know like sometimes we ourselves like talk a lot about like, oh, people are getting sidetracked or, this person still isn't in school or they dropped out of community or why are they doing this? This was enlightening in the way that I think it really opened my perspective on no one's on any timeline and it's not up to me to like impose that timeline on other people, whether I say it to their face or I just judge in my head. Because I think it's very easy to start judging people, right? Because the stigma, and it's ironic that I do it even as someone that didn't go to school. I see other people not go to school and I'm like, oh, what are you doing? Like, you should be going to school. Why are you slacking off? It's like, ultimately I feel like that's just me projecting or something because everyone is on their own path. And maybe a person took 3 years, 4 years, or they just never went to school and like, it doesn't matter. You make your own path. But then again, it's also like, okay, but what's the line of? And you also like, yes, you're on your own path, but this path, like, you have not taken any steps. So you actually got to start walking and doing stuff,
Yeah, I definitely agree with the judgment aspect. However, I do feel that the judgment is a bit different from where we stand because of the way and background that we grew up. Like, we didn't have a lot of examples of people actually taking gap years and then going back to school, and not to say that they have to, but I think, at least for me, because school is just always ingrained in my head, I had that expectation for myself, and I think I just like subconsciously put that onto other people, but to each their own.
Besides that, last thing I want to say on Julie is this idea of being in a stretch zone. And honestly, I'm a very big believer in that. I'm such a like, if it's not going to kill you, if it's not going to harm you, there's no, like, what do you have to lose? It could be awkward as fuck. You might be sweating. You might be anxious, scared, but those are just feelings. Like, they're not going to actually hurt you. So I'm a big believer in doing things that are like really forcing myself to do things that are a little uncomfortable that I might not even want to do just to see, like, know that I can do it. And I feel like I've learned a lot and I've developed a lot of self-trust in myself because of that. And I think that's the one piece of advice that was really reassuring to hear from her as well.
Definitely. And I think as somebody that loves their comfort, I love being comfortable, I love my stability. That's something that I am always trying to be aware and conscious of, and putting myself in situations where I might put myself in a situation where I'm like, I know that this is going to end badly, but I sort of just want to experience it. Like, sue me, I don't care. So a lot of it is just also just having enough trust in yourself, knowing that, okay, maybe things might go shitty, but it's fine because I'm gonna be okay and things will get better.